Hi, we're here to talk about how to make a fire, and I just wanted to share this with you all because I felt so blessed and grateful to figure this out. Um, Years ago, before I met Gumby and he taught me all this, I was trying to start a fire. It was a cool night in the redwoods in California, and I had some firewood that kind of looked like this, or without it being already charred, like this. So it was pre-cut firewood, and when I got to my campsite, there was a locker with some newspaper in it. So I thought, oh, okay, I've got a lighter, and I've got some wood, and I've got some newspaper. And my idea was to scrunch up the newspaper in between the already cut firewood and then light the newspaper, and that would hopefully ignite it all. And I did that, and I lit the first piece of newspaper, and I watched it just burn out. And it didn't even put a mark on the wood. So I was really upset. And some people that were next door to me camping, they invited me over to their fire. And they were using lighter fluid, of all things, to keep their fire going. So when I figured this out, well, I can't even say I figured it out, but when I learned about this and I'm practicing how to make a fire, it just really blew my mind. And I feel like this is a video that'll hopefully make fire more accessible to people, especially if you're backpacking, if you're just trying to impress your friends with building a fire. So the most important thing, I guess, to start with is if you're going to make a fire, you want to make sure you clear away the debris that could potentially catch on fire from your fire. And we happen to be at a campsite, so somebody long ago has built this fire ring of rocks. Rocks are good to keep the fire in, but they're not necessary. And I just kind of leveled out the land as if I had just come across a piece of land. So this is all clear of debris. And then I made a hole. You can determine, like, this is real crumbly because it's a fire pit, but if you're out somewhere and maybe the ground is soft, you could use a stick, or if you happen to have a small shovel, you can use that. Hopefully it won't be too hard to do. And the advantage of having a pit like this is it can help you to bank the coals for maybe the next morning, so you don't have to start completely over again from scratch. This hole is about the size of a coffee canister, so you don't want it to be too deep and you don't want it to be too broad, so when you build your fire, the heat is really maintained. I have a number of things here to start the fire, including matches. Hopefully the fire spirits will be with me on that one. This comes from just a field that's right behind me over there. And this stuff is going to be really good to scrunch up and start as my tinder.
What is that stuff?
Oh gosh, you're doing this to me?
Well, that's dead Lesbodisha, but there's a lot of like really common stuff. So Lesbodisha is great. So is dead dog fennel, any of those weedy things along roadsides and in fields that you find.
Yeah. So I call it bird grass because the birds like it, but that is not the terminology. So I'm starting with something that's really small. And if you don't have a field, something else that you can use are tiny sticks. So when Gumby told me about tiny sticks, I was really impressed too. And this was something that he learned from a coworker. So tiny sticks, the tinier the better, and the more you get, the better. So we're gonna double do this up. I've got the dead Lesbodisha stalks, the dead grass, and then I'm gonna take my tiny sticks.
Yeah, even more tiny sticks in rain. Like in pouring rain, you can start a fire if you get the right wood and the right tiny sticks. Hemlock is great in the mountains.
And it really starts the fire, I hope, easily, and it makes it hotter. And the reason why I'm putting it kind of to one side is I'm going to put the match down here and fire is burning up. So I want to have it kind of, everything kind of start to be above the match. Some other examples of things you can use are, I just got a little bit of this. This is greenbrier or catbrier vine, and it's dead. So it's got little pointy thorns on it. But this is also really good for starting a fire because it's really dry. And you can also use things that are like the bark of trees. So this is tulip tree bark. It's also good for making cordage. But you can find bark often on the ground. And some other bark that you can use is eastern red cedar bark. You can kind of just peel it off the tree and then start to roll it in your hands and get it kind of like a fuzzy ball. And another bark that's really good, even in the rain, is river birch bark, or birch bark in general, because it has an oil in its bark that is really flammable. So Gumby's told me, like, even in the rain you can start a fire with that stuff when it's wet. So if you happen to be backpacking or hiking or hitchhiking, whatever, and you think you're going to need a fire, and you come across one of these trees that has the peely bark that you can use, maybe stuff some in your pocket. Obviously looking around to make sure authorities aren't right there.
Your pocket helps keep it dry too.
Yeah, and this can really help you if you come into a place where maybe you're surrounded by rhododendron or mountain laurel. And that's another thing that you need to keep in mind is be careful about burning a lot of rhododendron, because it could make you feel really bad. The smoke that is emitted from that type of wood is just, it can cause headaches. And another one is poison ivy vines. And you might think, oh, who's going to pick up poison ivy?
I've done it.
You would be surprised. It starts to look like pieces of wood if it's dry and on the ground.
And pine is slightly toxic too. It's a great thing to start your fires because it's really flammable, but I wouldn't burn it long. That can give you a headache.
Yeah, and something else that I had done before we started the video was I collected different sizes of wood because, like I said, starting your fire with a match with just this, it's not going to work. So if you have other people with you, maybe, even kids, like send them out and say, like, go find me some sticks that look like that, and go find me some that look like that, and bigger and bigger. And maybe every time you come back to your campsite, and when you go out, like for a walk or whatever, bring big pieces of wood back. That way you don't exhaust the supply that's in your immediate area. All right, so enough prep. Let's see if I can do this.
And this method Teresa's using to start our match is often a method that kids use when they're not comfortable with matches yet, where you can close the book on it. Makes you feel a little safer.
All right, so remember that fire burns up, so you kind of want to get the match lit first. And then I'm going to try, and this is actually the tulip tree bark that started.
And I know a lot of people that start learning about tinder bundles, which the tulip tree is right now. Don't get too caught up in that. Tiny sticks are the most important thing. I've seen some people that get so addicted to tinder bundles that the tinder bundle will be kind of wet and they won't be able to start their fire, whereas if they just grabbed tiny sticks, they could have.
Okay, so I was also blowing on it. When you start to see a lot of smoke, that often means that your fire's talking to you and it's telling you, I need some oxygen, please. So I just kind of blew on it carefully. And you can see this is starting to go off pretty quick. So it's already up to my tiny sticks. So I'm going to add the next biggest size of tiny sticks. Hopefully this will keep catching. And you want to really watch the fire and listen to it. You don't want to starve the fire by not giving it enough fuel. And you also don't want to have the fire too scattered, because then it doesn't have enough heat to maintain the fire. So right now it's kind of still in its very baby stage. I don't want to overdo it, but I also don't want to neglect what's happening here. So I'm going to kind of be very careful and push my next bundle on there. Okay, I think it needs some air.
Yeah, like Teresa said, it's talking to you. That smoke means it could use more air, and sometimes the fire can work through it. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to blow on it every time it smokes like that, but just be aware that it's communicating with you.
Something I found out recently too that's kind of maybe a little bit safer is I have a lid from a plastic bin, and I just kind of use that to flame it, so I'm not having my face right near the fire if you feel a little bugged out by that.
And some people get like a hollow straw, like a bamboo, and use that to blow too.
So these are some other stalks that I found in the field. We can use those. They're really dry. And then just a lot of other sticks that I just picked up from the ground. So hopefully fire will like my contributions. And there's something else that Gumby taught me, and that's like the construction of a fire. So right now we're just starting out, but eventually you can start to make different structures. So whether that's a teepee structure with your wood, so just starting to add it in a teepee formation to the fire, or a log cabin fire. And the log cabin fire looks more like putting the sticks this way and then lining them up this way, and that could be really good for a strong fire if it's rainy out. So if you know that there's some rain in your forecast, maybe do the log cabin fire.
Yeah, I'm more and more becoming a fan of the log